My name is David Bass, and I smoke weed every day. A doctor told me to do that. His name is Dr. Dre. In fact, this morning, after I woke up, I vaped some Mendocino Perp, and I felt good all day. I don't feel bad about smoking marijuana because we are revolutionaries. We did not declare the war on drugs. In 1937, our own government declared war on us, and our government has been at war against us for almost 100 years. But we resist this unjust law, and we will continue to resist this unjust law until we win. Because this is a real war. It's not just a theory, it's a real war. There are casualties, there are refugees, there are our brothers and sisters being arrested and put in prison every day in the state of Texas. And this is unjust. It's not right. And we are not going to stop working until marijuana is legal in Texas and no one is arrested for choosing to use cannabis either for medical reasons or just to make themselves feel good. Back in 2015, a guy named Rob Campia showed up here at the Flamingo Cantina. Rob is the head of the Marijuana Policy Project, and he was bringing the influence and expertise of the Marijuana Policy Project here to Texas. Because what Rob told us is, as Texas goes, the whole South will go. And so the reason that Marijuana Policy Project came to Texas is because our fight is not just in our state. What we're doing influences the entire South of the United States. And so Rob was back there where Randall's sitting now, and he was talking to a psychiatrist who was here. And the psychiatrist said, and if you look up the definition of euphoria in the dictionary, the definition of euphoria is a state of extreme happiness and self-confidence. So our government has made it against the law for us to feel extreme happiness and self-confidence. Does that seem just? No, not at all. I know we all agree on that. And so the other thing about cannabis, as we know, is that cannabis is medicine. I've been diagnosed with cancer twice within the last 6 months. And in October, I had a malignant melanoma removed from my leg. And then in last month, I had a tumor removed from my bladder. I had bladder cancer. And both of the operations were successful, which I'm very, otherwise. So I'm very happy to be standing up here tonight. But the thing is, about skin cancer and bladder cancer, is there's a high rate of recurrence. And so what I want to do is something called the Rick Simpson Protocol. Have you heard of the Rick Simpson Protocol? Now, the federal government stands in the way of honest research on the medical effects of cannabis. And our very good friend, Dr. Sue Sisley, is getting ready to conduct one of the first scientific studies in the United States about how cannabis might help the symptoms of veterans who have PTSD. But the other day, Dr. Sisley received her shipment of cannabis from the federal government to use for her study. Have you all seen this on Facebook? So the federal government has a marijuana farm. Where is the marijuana farm?
University of Mississippi.
Yes, thank you. The University of Mississippi. You've been doing your homework. That's right. So the federal government grows cannabis at the University of Mississippi. And if you've ever seen photographs of the government cannabis, you would be appalled. It doesn't look right. And I had read this a couple of years ago. What they do with first of all, they don't know what they're growing. They have no idea if it's, indica, sativa. They have no idea what it is. It's just what we would call ditchweed is what we would call it. And they grow it outside in a literal field. And when it's ready, you know what they do with it? They take the whole plant and throw it into a big grinder and grind up the entire plant. Seed, everything, seed, stalk. And so what Dr. Sisley received was this green plant matter that she is supposed to conduct this research with veterans. And she, if I recall correctly, her goal was to have cannabis with around 15% THC. But this government cannabis is, as best anybody can tell, only about 8 to 10% THC, and they don't take any kind of precautions against mold and bacteria. The question is, will Dr. Sisley's outcomes be legitimate? Because cannabis helps me with my PTSD. That's why I'm standing up here today. That's why I joined Texas Normal. But I don't smoke ditchweed. I smoke real cannabis with a high THC content, and that's what helps me with PTSD and chronic pain. And so every step of the way, the government puts up obstacles for legitimate researchers like Dr. Sisley. And so we do have some honest congressmen and women in Washington, D.C., and they are working very hard to pass a law that would allow researchers like Dr. Sisley to purchase the cannabis for the studies from legitimate growers that know what they're doing. And there might be a few in the house tonight. You don't need to raise your hand. But my point is that ever since 1937, the government has lied about cannabis. The government has attacked its own citizens for choosing to use cannabis. The government has prevented legitimate research into the effects of cannabis. And even today, we had so much hope for Dr. Sisley's study, and then we see what the government gives her to conduct the study with. And so, the good news is we're winning. That's the good news. And we know we're winning because we now have 8 legal states that marijuana is totally legal. And my last count, it keeps changing because it keeps going up, but Jax can correct me if I'm wrong, we have 28 medical marijuana states. Is that the count now? Plus, our nation's capital has legalized marijuana. And so our opponents are in retreat. We are winning. We recently changed our mission statement for Texas NORML because, and Jax can help me out, but what we used to say is that we wanted to convince, we used to say, thank you, Dave. We used to say we wanted to change public opinion about cannabis. Guess what? We changed public opinion about cannabis. The majority of Americans now agree that putting you in jail for choosing to use cannabis is wrong and unjust. And the majority of Texans also agree that it is not right to put you in jail for choosing to use cannabis. What's the latest percent? Something, it's like, I mean, it's a large number. It's not like 51%. It's between 70 and 80%. Yes, 82 perhaps. But the vast majority of Texans believe that it's time to stop arresting and imprisoning our fellow citizens for choosing to use cannabis. And the reason that happened is because of you. You are the reason that we have convinced this many people. And the reason we did that is because of civil disobedience. We refuse to obey an unjust law. And that's why, when I woke up this morning, I went and sat outside on my patio and vaped my Mendocino Perp because I'm going to keep doing that until the government changes the law. And I know that this has been going on ever since at least the 1960s. And I've met veterans going all the way back to the Korean War who have been using cannabis for PTSD and chronic pain right here in the state of Texas and have been passing this knowledge about medical cannabis from generation to generation of veterans. And so the fact is, truth is on our side. It's our opponents who lie. It's our opponents who will come kick your door down and arrest you and take away your child and take away your driver's license for 6 months. That's what they do. But truth is not on their side, and justice is not on their side, and we are not going to stop fighting this injustice until we win. So I've had 2 surgeries, and I woke up in post-op. And when you wake up in post-op, and they say, okay, you can go home, the surgery went well, there's 4 things that they want you to do. Anybody been in post-op before? All right. Let me check my notes so I get this right. First, they give you a barf bag because you might feel nauseated from the anesthesia. So they want to make sure that you can stand up and kind of walk around without being nauseated. The second thing they want you to do is eat a little sandwich, some crackers, and drink some apple juice to make sure that your digestive system has woke up from the anesthesia. The third thing they want you to do is urinate to make sure your organs are operating correctly. And the fourth thing they do is give you a little brown paper sack with your pain medications in the brown paper sack. And so for my second operation after bladder surgery, urinating was extremely painful, as you can imagine. And so I was in post-op, and I'm chatting with the nurse, and it occurred to me that if I had my Pax vaporizer with a 1/2 gram of really good cannabis in it, I could lie there in the hospital bed and take a few puffs from my Pax, and it would solve all 4 problems. It would, because cannabis takes care of nausea. Am I correct? Has anybody experienced that? Cannabis stimulates the appetite, because to tell you the truth, that sandwich, that little ham sandwich and crackers didn't look all that appetizing. But cannabis would stimulate my appetite. Cannabis would relax my body so that I would be able to urinate and it wouldn't be so painful. And cannabis would help with the pain so that I could not have to take the opioid pain medications, or at least take less of the opioid pain medications. And so I have a marijuana tattoo on my shoulder. And so my nurse saw the marijuana tattoo, and she said she really liked that tattoo. And so I told her I was extremely disappointed that I couldn't bring my Pax to the hospital to use in post-op. And she said, I wish you could too. So I've been going to Darnall Army Medical Center at Fort Hood, and ever since all this stuff has been going on, I figured, hey, I got nothing to lose. So I've been telling every single nurse, every single one of my doctors, all of the anesthesiology personnel, that I use cannabis, because they always, you go through all the little questionnaires, and when they get to the part about what medications do you use, I tell them, the medications I'm using, and then I say I also use cannabis for chronic pain and PTSD. And in the, 8 months I've been doing this, I have not had a single doctor, nurse, or anesthesiologist say one thing negative to me about using cannabis. And these are doctors, nurses, and anesthesiologists at an Army medical center. But they know, because they've worked, all over the United States, to include in medical marijuana states. And now we're at the point where people almost everyone knows someone who uses cannabis for medical reasons. And so that's why we were very, very happy to change our Texas Normal mission statement to, what did we change it to, Jax? Yeah, we're going to affect legislation because we've already convinced the majority of Texans that we are right. And I want to thank you for that. So when I joined Texas Normal, one of the first people I met was Vincent Lopez. And Vincent founded Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics. And at my first Texas Normal board meeting, Vincent took me aside and he said, "You're a veteran. I represent patients. You're going to represent veterans." And he said, if we veterans and patients work together in Texas for medical marijuana, we will be unstoppable because veterans and patients have a very powerful testimony. And so Vincent and I worked together until Vincent passed. And since Vincent passed, Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics has kind of been in abeyance. But we are working with Vincent's family to get Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics back into the fight. Because that's what Vincent would want us to do. So I want to introduce Akila. Akila is going to discuss PACT and whatever patient issues that is from Akila's heart tonight. So, Akila, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. I'm a lot like Jax. I can't stand still and talk. It's just not in my nature. Again, my name is Akila. I am the Patient Outreach Officer for the Texas Normal Board. I am a patient. I am working very closely with Vincent's family to try to reestablish that we patients, we are here, and we do have a voice, and we do need to be heard. By a show of hands, anyone else use cannabis to alleviate any medical conditions? Hey, look at that. We are not alone. To all of you, thank you. Each and every one of you is the reason that I am here. Each and every one of you are on my heart and my mind and in my thoughts every day. I am a patient. I use cannabis to help my anxiety. I use cannabis to help me be able to stand here in front of you today. I am a patient that deserves the right to stand up and tell my doctor, I deserve something that's not a pharmaceutical. I deserve to have a better quality of life. My quality of life looks like me maybe rubbing on some topical cannabis because my leg hurts. Maybe I got like a little shoulder pain. Maybe I do need to vaporize some cannabis to perform for a work meeting. Whatever the case may be, I, as a patient, have the right to say, I get to choose. And as David Bass was saying, we as patients, we do have a voice in this movement. We do need to be heard. My voice matters. Your voice matters. I'm in the process now of trying to get us back on the map, to let us know that we are here. We do need to be heard. I'm thinking about reemerging the quarterly patient packed meetings going around, maybe June-ish, we'll see. We do have the Marijuana March coming up in May. I will certainly be there because we'll be at the Capitol, and that's where we as patients deserve to be. My family deserves to be protected by the laws. I deserve to be protected by the laws, and so do you. So Texas Normal gives me an opportunity to use my voice with like-minded patients, like-minded individuals, to say that I am a Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics. It's my body, my voice, and I deserve to be heard. I thank you all for being here. I do want to let our patients know that we do have some bills going through the legislature session right now. We do have House Bill 269, nope, that's Senate Bill 269, authored by, wait, yes, Jose Menendez. Thank you. I wrote that down yesterday and forgot. He authored the bill that would allow for our legislators to expound upon the Texas Compassionate Use Act, the TCUP, the program. Thank you. The TCUP. Right now, the law says that Texas is a medical state, but those medical patients have to have intractable epilepsy. I'm a medical patient. I do deserve access as well. So what Senator Menendez did was he said that, you know, politicians, we don't need to be in the way of what patients need because they're politicians. A patient's relationship, a patient's quality of life, your quality of life, your quality of life, and your quality of life should be discussed with your healthcare provider that you pay a service for to keep me healthy. So my son can see me succeed, so I can see him succeed. I, as a patient, deserve that. And Senator Menendez says, yeah, I'm a politician. I have no right to be there. So I appreciate him for doing that as a patient and being affected by my life. We also have the House Bill 2107, is that right? Yay, I'm on a roll today. Cannabis, y'all, it works. Just saying. Little rub-a-do-ya, puff, dab, whatevs, baby dabs, whatevs. Oh, shout out to my kid, thanks. I don't know the author of that particular bill. However, I do know that they also share Senator Menendez's viewpoint. I did read recently that the House Bill 2107 would allow doctors to come up with an expanded panel of more conditions that are allowed, that suitable, that fall underneath the qualifications for patients such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, cancer, things along with HIV complications, pathologies, things of that nature, things that touch the lives of patients, because it's called the Texas Compassionate Use Program. But as it states, it's not very compassionate. And we as patients, Vincent especially, he believes that we require compassion, empathy, and empowerment. If you'd like to buy one of these rockin' green t-shirts, I'll be here all night. Thank you so much. I'm Akila.
So if you don't follow Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics on Facebook, PACT on Facebook, and start following and keep up to date on what's going on with PACT. So my first legislative session with Texas Normal was 2013, and we did not have a lobbyist during the 2013 session. So we were very excited for the 2015 session to get a lobbyist. But before I go on with that, Jax reminded me, we're giving away a prize.
Magic Flight vape.
Who wants a Magic Flight vape? All right, what do you have to do? Go over to the table. Go sign up at the table. And we're going to have a drawing. And one lucky person will get to go home with a very nice vaporizer. Who is here tonight for your very first Texas Normal event or meeting? Raise your hand. All right, let's give them a hand. Thank you for being here. For those of you who are here for your first time, I would like to introduce you to someone. Bill Norton, could you stand up back there in the green? This is Bill Norton. For those of you who are with us for the first time, Bill founded Texas Normal in 1973. And Bill was participating in civil disobedience over here at the University of Texas in 1973. And he decided with some friends to found Texas Normal. And so we would like to invite you tonight to join Texas Normal. Go see Betty at the Texas Normal table. This is Betty Williams. And join Texas Normal. You will be joining an organization who has been working hard to legalize marijuana in the state of Texas since 1973. And I'm very thankful for everyone who came before me who's been working on this issue all these years. So please join us tonight and buy a t-shirt. You get a t-shirt when you join. But if you've already joined, check out the merchandise and say hello to Betty. I'd also like to thank Angela and the Flamingo Cantina for having us. And I ask you to generously tip our wonderful bartenders tonight. All right, so in 2015, I met Randall Kirkendall, and Randall is our lobbyist. And we, as Texas Normal, make a donation to support us having a lobbyist, as well as many other people in the state of Texas make donations, because having a lobbyist is absolutely crucial to passing legislation. Now, I know in the general scheme of things, many people associate lobbyists with corruption. But that's a very narrow point of view about what lobbyists do. And I can assure you that having a lobbyist is absolutely crucial to our work. And so we asked Randall to come speak to us tonight and tell us what a lobbyist does and why having a lobbyist is important, and also to give us a legislative update about the bills that we're interested in passing this legislative session, and perhaps also just give us a brief tutorial about how these bills have to get through the legislature and end up on the governor's desk. So, and also, Randall, if you can tell us what is a carrier bill, because Jax was explaining that to us the other night. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to introduce a crucial member of our team in Texas, Randall Kirkendall.
Thanks for giving me that corruption hole to dig out of. Appreciate it. It's a hell of a way to start. I am going to start with the way Dave started. My name is Randall. I smoke weed. Occasionally. I got an email from Dave a week or two ago, and he asked me to come speak here tonight, and I said, yes, obviously I will. Be glad to, and I am excited to be here. But he gave me a laundry list of things to talk about. He went over some of those things just now, and one of those items is, what does a lobbyist do? And I want to get to that, and I'm going to have to hurry through this because I think I have 15 minutes, and like I said, he gave me a long list. Did I mention that? But before I talk about what a lobbyist does, I want to tell you how I got to be a lobbyist, how I came to be working for the marijuana reform movement, and I'm going to start way back. I first started working in the legislature in 1992. I was 7 years old. Quickly made it to chief of staff by the time I was 10 years old. And I worked for a Democrat chairman of the Public Safety Committee for about 7 to 8 years. He was from Northeast Texas. Once he retired, I went to work for a senator, a Republican senator, in the Senate for 2 years. And at that point, I had 9 years of service with the state. I'd worked in both the House, both the Senate, and all the capacities you could serve in a particular office. I clerked committees, I did payroll, I did staff, I did agenda items, and we did a lot of statewide issues that are big, much like what we're doing here. I mean, what we do with this marijuana reform movement is we're moving a mountain, and it's a big deal that affects 26 million. It 3 years into it, I had 5 or 6 clients doing pretty well. One of my early clients was a law enforcement association that represented the rank and file cops, and they were actually one of my longest clients. 13 years I worked for those folks, and we finally got to a point where we did not agree on what their path forward should be. I was much more determined to make them better than they were. So we parted ways. Shortly after that, probably 6 months after that, I got a call from Rob Campia, and he asked me if I was interested in going to work for marijuana reform movement, and I was like, sure, I'm in business, of course I'm interested. So I said yes, and we set up a date for an interview, and between that phone call and the interview, several days, it gave me an opportunity to study the issue, because I wasn't all that astute. I knew what was going on here in Texas. I was familiar with Elliot Nastat's efforts. I was familiar with Terry Kill's efforts, but that's really all I knew. So by the time we had the interview, I had studied and I had learned about patients' needs, the efficacy of marijuana, how it helps the refugees that we have leaving this state to go get care in other states, how veterans have embraced marijuana for an option and an alternative to the medications that they are required to use right now and they're prescribed to use for the conditions that they have as a service to our state. And by the time that interview came around, I knew that this is going to be the most important thing that I do in my career. And I was so happy to do it. I didn't tell Rob that because we still had negotiations to go through. But I want to tell you guys, I am honored to be here. I'm honored to represent you folks, and I mean it. So what does a lobbyist do? This is the hardest part of the whole presentation. I haven't told my mom yet that I'm a lobbyist. I had a partner in this business for a while that he was a lobbyist, of course, and he opened up a lot of speeches. He's a lot funnier than me. He opened up speeches with a joke. Sometimes it was, I haven't told my parents that I'm a lobbyist yet. They think I'm a piano player in a whorehouse. And that is like to reference that this is maybe not an honorable kind of deal. But we try. There are rules, there are regulations. We have to be certified with the state. We have to register, and we have to do the right thing in order to be successful. And I've been in this business for a long time, and you can't stay here and do this if you're not honest and straightforward. And that is one of the reasons I really like representing this issue, because as Dave mentioned, it's all about truth, and my job is really to spread that to a certain degree. But one of the services I do, and I'm going to try to break this down into 3 components, what lobbying really is. And it's not just lobbying. Really what we're doing is running a campaign. And that's one component of it. The other is lobbying, and then there's another, which is the consulting aspect. So I'm going to talk about all 3 of those really briefly. The lobby part is basically working with the legislature. It is knowing where bills go, how they go, how they're perceived, and to make sure they don't fall through the cracks. Everything changes in the legislature, every session. So there are new members of the legislature, there are new rules in both the House and both the Senate. Every single committee runs differently because the chairman can decide how they have to run. So you have to know how to do it. You have to know who's there, what they're doing, and what their motivation is. So you have to know the process. It's like Imagine a ship coming to port and then a pilot from the local area coming in and taking that ship through the port because the captain doesn't know it. I help shepherd these bills and this through the process. And in that, I get to know the members of the legislature very well. I know many of them by name. I know many of them, we talk on, I have their text, which is the best thing when they're in committee and I can just text them what to do. It's pretty awesome. But also the staff is always new. They're also very young. They don't have the experience that I had. They don't know how to handle these large statewide issues. So I got to make sure that they don't make technical errors that put our efforts in jeopardy. So that's part of what we do in the lobby aspect. The consulting aspect is what I do on a daily basis with Jax and Heather and others that work on messaging. And messaging is really a small word for a big, huge effort. So we have Normal, of course, and we have the coalition that is all part of the movement. And in Texas, we're all working very well together, which I understand from talking to Rob and others that that's not common in other states. So we're really fortunate to do that. But we have a lot of voices, and all of these voices need to be directed to the same message. We have to be saying the same thing. Like, for example, there are about a dozen bills that have been filed this session that deal with marijuana. Up from 3 last session, by the way. All of those 3 were ours. Now we have people just randomly filing them, which is great. We've definitely made some progress there. But we've got to stick to our message. We can't go support all 12 bills, because then our yes doesn't mean as much. If we support 2, those yeses matter. Support 12, it doesn't matter. It's like, hell, we support everything. Just say marijuana in it and we'll support it. Can't do that. That's not part of our messaging. We have to be direct. We have to know who to message, what to message, and we got to make sure it resonates with members. So I work with them daily to make sure that we craft the right message, deliver it to the right people in the right manner. That's one of the consulting parts of it. And the campaign part is, like I said, it is basically what we're doing. We are running a campaign, and all these components have to work together to make it happen. And a campaign is really a fight. I mean, we have to fight for what we know is right, for the issues that matter, and for the bills that we have drafted and people have spent their time on, and patients care for, and veterans care for. It's a fight, but we have to know when to fight, who to fight, how to fight them, and know how to represent a victory, how to recognize a victory. And I want to give you a brief example of that. When I started in 2014 working for the Marijuana Policy Project and eventually representing you guys as well as part of the coalition, our first vocal opposition was the Texas Sheriff's Association. Any sheriffs in here? Good. No? I'm about to talk some shit on them. So they came out, they passed a resolution, they gave it to all the members of the legislature, they said marijuana's bad, they did all the reefer madness stuff, the gateway drug, and all of that. And the response from most folks in the coalition, including MPP, was, fuck them, let's go get them. Let's just blast them out of the water and just say it's all bad, let's do a press conference, let's do a press release, and let's hammer them hard. I thought differently. I thought sometimes the best advocate is a poor opponent. And these tobacco chewers are poor opponents. So I wanted them to go out there and say, to talk reefer madness, to talk these antiquated ideas that we could easily debunk, and let them have a venue that also gives us a venue. And I know I've seen several people in here that have debated with the Sheriff's Association. I know Jax did at some point on a radio station, right? Yeah, kicked ass, right? We won every one of those debates. Kicked their ass. And they gave us the venue. That is a way of knowing how to fight, who to fight, where to fight, and recognizing a victory. Had we not done that, we would have recognized them in a completely different way. At this manner, they recognized us, and we got our issues out there. So that's primarily what a lobbyist does. Now I got to get a drink. Dave, what else is on my list? The bills. So as I mentioned, there were a lot of bills filed. We have 2 that we're focusing on primarily, a civil penalties bill and a medical marijuana bill. And you heard the numbers of the bills earlier, HB 81, 2107. We have Senate companions for those, and we haven't messed with the Senate bills a whole lot just yet, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I'm going to go through the civil penalties bill right quick, and then I'll do the medical marijuana bill, basically the status, where we are and why. And like I said, I'm going to go pretty quick. If you have any questions, I'll be available after. We'll talk. So the civil penalties bill just came out of committee last week. How about that? Or was it this week? This week? They all run together, baby. Monday. What's today?
Wednesday.
Thank you for that, Jax. Appreciate it. It's Wednesday. They kind of all run together when your legislative session is only 140 days long. It's all just one long day at some point. So our bill came out of committee. It goes to the Calendars Committee now, which is a committee that sets the agenda for the floor debate in the House. And so I expect that we will have a floor debate and vote on civil penalties on the House floor within about 3 weeks. Yeah, that's a big deal. We're going to put a lot of people put their feet to the fire. We're going to get them registered vote on it, and that's going to help us moving forward because we'll know who to focus on, who wasn't with us, and that's a good thing to have. But there's a lot of work between now and then. We've got to work the Calendars Committee to make sure that we get our bill heard. We've got to address them all individually, which is part of that consulting package and lobbying package. And then we've got to work the entire House floor, which is 150 members that we have to make personal contact with. Like one of the things that I do is we do two types of balloting, if you will. So I do a vote count, and I do what's called a soft vote count before the vote. So before the bill ever gets on the agenda, we get an idea of where all the members are and where they might vote based on just our knowledge of maybe we'll have other members talk to them, maybe some of our other lobbyists will help us out. Advocates tell us this person's with us, this person's not. So we make a list, and I call that a soft vote count. So we'll know then where to focus. Prior to the vote on the floor, I will make personal contact, and we have others making personal contact with every single 150 member, so we get a solid vote count. So we know where to work and what to expect from that. If and when that bill passes the House and will go to the Senate, we expect leadership out of John Whitmire, who is the chairman of Criminal Justice Committee in the Senate. We already have a companion bill to that Senator Jose Rodriguez has. It's set and ready to go. So once we get to the Senate, we'll start working a little bit more on that on the Senate side. Our work is really in the House this session. And again, I'm going to talk about that in a minute after I do the medical marijuana bill. So 2107 is a complex bill. It is everything. It's comprehensive. It has everything you want in a bill. It is a accumulation of all 28 states that have a medical marijuana bill. We took the best out of all of those and made one for Texas. And it's a very good looking bill. Everybody would be happy with that, except a lot of legislators. Just want to throw that in there. Just want to throw that in, sorry. But we're working on that too. We are working for a hearing for that bill in the House with the Public Health Committee, doing the same thing in the Senate. And this is what I was talking about earlier, working these committees, making sure that they get contacted by their constituents, by you folks. When it's time to contact these members, it would be great to have you make your contacts with your personal member whose district in which you live. Contact them, let them know we want a hearing on this bill, and when it's time, contact them, let them know we want a positive vote on the bill. So the same thing holds true with the medical marijuana bill. Once it gets through the committee, it'll go to Calendars, then it'll go to the House floor, and then to the Senate, where we already have a bill parked that Representative Menendez has, and we'll go from there. Now, we may be able to get a hearing in the Senate first on Menendez's bill. We're working on it. Don't know yet. But I want to talk about the Senate now. I want to talk about some of our problems. I can name three of them pretty easy right now. Dan Patrick, Greg Abbott, and Stephanie Click. Sorry. If you're surprised to hear Stephanie Click's name, I'll tell you why. She was the sponsor of the Compassionate Use Program. It is a very limited bill that we want to expand upon. That's our whole medical marijuana bill expands the Compassionate Use Program to include all the things that we want in a bill, but it's just built on the infrastructure that's already been created by her bill. However, she has said she's not going to do any more with reform this session. She'll not do make any positive vote on any bill that we have or any amendment or any measure that we have that expands her bill. She will not even vote or offer up an amendment to say recommend as opposed to prescribe. So that's a hurdle for us because members look to her because she's the one that passed the bill. So she's a little bit of a problem. You guys know Abbott's a little bit of a problem, and Dan Patrick in the Senate is one of our biggest problems. He's a problem because he's put the Senate on lockdown. They have done nothing this session but work on his issues that he thinks is important to his base. So the Senate has not been able to move any other bills out of the Senate at this point or have hearings on anything substantive other than those particular like red meat sort of issues. So when I talk about the House and how important it is, we have to get House bills to the Senate this time around. I want to talk about Plan B too. So let's say that our bills get stuck. They're not moving for one reason or another. And that's going to be pretty common this session because, as I mentioned, the Senate's got everything locked up. So we're going to look for what we call vehicles. This is what Dave called carrier bills, which is, I guess, a fine terminology for them. But we also call them Christmas trees because we throw so many damn ornaments on these things because they're the only bills that are moving through, right? So we basically are going to take apart our medical marijuana bill and our civil penalty bills and put them in little pieces we call amendments. And when a bill comes through that we have the potential to amend, we are going to offer these amendments for these bills, whether it's in committee or whether it's on the House floor. So we're going to take the bits and pieces, like I said, the important stuff, the most important things to us, and put them on other vehicles as a Plan B. And the point of me telling you that is this: we will leave no cards on the table. This is an important effort for us. We intend to do everything possible and make every maneuver that we know to have success, to move this mountain, not pebble by pebble, but section by section. And we are making great progress in that endeavor, I think. Dave, what else is on my list?
Why do you think Governor Abbott will not meet with the...
So I think the question was asked and answered back here, but I'm going to just let y'all know what he said. Dave asked, why will Governor Abbott not meet with the veterans? And the answer is, because he's an asshole. I'm not doing a good job for myself right now, I'm saying that. Not for the governor's office anyhow. So the reality, this is what I think, Dave, and this is sort of an educated guess on my part. The governor has said nothing, will not respond to news reporters, will not respond to our requests, will not talk about marijuana right now because he knows he's wrong. And the first time he says or brings up an objection, we're going to be able to slam him on it. And he's politically astute enough to know not to do it. So he's not saying anything. He's not responding to any reporter's requests or us, like I said. So he's just avoiding the topic altogether, and we will have a way to deal with him over this next interim. We will already start to develop a plan internally to message the governor, if you will, and to sort of call him out to a certain degree. What else are we at? Okay, he's giving me a thumbs up. Let me say this in closing. As I mentioned, I am honored to work for you guys, and I hope you have some more questions. I look forward to answering them. It is my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited for all that we're doing, and I'm very optimistic about our chances this session and moving forward. I think we're going to make a difference, and together we can move this mountain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randall. If you have questions of Randall, I'm sure he'll be happy to talk to you. Hey, how many of you are hardworking people? Raise your hand. All right. I'm a hardworking person, too. All of my friends, with the exception of one or two, are also hardworking people. But there is a person who I guarantee you works harder than any of us. And that person is our Texas Normal Executive Director, Jack Spinkle. So I'm proud to introduce you to the hardest working person I know, and I'm so glad that she's working on our issue. Thank you, Jack.
I love that Dave's back. I miss Dave. I'm glad everything turned out well so far. And thank you to Randall for showing up. I'm pretty sure he's having a shot somewhere. So I appreciate him coming, giving an update on how everything is going up at the Capitol. And what I'm going to talk about real quick is, first of all, if you want that Magic Flight vaporizer, you have to go sign up right now. So if you haven't already signed up, go do so up there. We'll do the drawing at the end of me talking about upcoming events. There are other things that we do besides our monthly meeting. We do direct actions up at the Capitol every 2 weeks or so. Those depend on exactly what our need is up at the Capitol. We also have a lot of fun events, and a few of those coming up is Reggae Fest coming up and following weekend. I believe it's the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Is that correct? 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's like early this year. It's before 420. So we're going to be at Reggae Fest, enjoying the wonderful music, all the awesome vendors. If you guys are at Reggae Fest, make sure you come and stop by our booth and say hi. We're also going to go up to DFW. Road trip, Akila and Dave and Jax. And we're going to go to the Southwest Cannabis Conference. This is the second one held in Texas, and it's basically an expo and conference with panels and speakers and vendors, all kinds of information. So we'll have our booth set up there, raising funds for the mission, and then I'll also be participating on some panels there. So if you know anybody up in DFW, it would be a really good time, and that's going to be over the post-420 weekend. So it's the 21st and 22nd, or 22nd and 23rd. I'm not good with dates tonight, apparently, so like you Googly that, and you'll find it. And then after that, we're going to be holding a marijuana march up at the Capitol. This is our 10th annual marijuana march, so that's like a long time. But this time it's during session, and we have Miss Donna Howard, Representative Donna Howard, as our sponsor again. She's been sponsoring us for a long time, and she is actually also the vice chair of calendars, so that is really good. Highfalutin, very fancy. So we're looking forward to having that march coming up in May. That was confusing when I said it out loud. The Texas Marijuana March coming up on May 13th. So those are the big events that we have coming up. There's going to be more hearings. You heard Randall talking about some of the stuff coming up. And basically, when the time comes, it's extremely important that you take an hour or two out of your day, come up to the Capitol. All you have to do is get on the Wi-Fi, and you can log in and register in support of the bills. And it can literally take an hour of your time. Now, of course, it works better on Apples, which sucks because I have an Android. But I hope all of you will take the time, show up, and support civil penalties and medical cannabis so that everyone can just stop the bleeding of what's going on in Texas. How many $1 billion was it that they were spending, Randall? Do you remember? On law enforcement? Yeah. Like $1.5 billion related to it, which is just ridiculous. Whenever they're talking about the budget and stuff, let's talk about the budget, shall we? All right, so instead of going on a rant, let's pull out a Vena for the Magic Flight Vaporizer. All right, I am not looking. I am not looking. It's a thing. I have it. Eli Wallace? Is that a name of a person that's here? I have a thing for you. All right, everybody. I'm going to go get him his vaporizer. Please make sure that you come and participate in our upcoming events. Stay tuned to our action alerts so that you can be up to date on what's going on in the legislative session. It's going to be historic. I thank Randall for being here and working with us on the issue. He definitely keeps it entertaining. So, all right. Did Dave have any? Oh, hi. Hi. It's Dave. Creeper. There we go.
Creeping. Hey, this is Mike. Raise your hand, Mike. I want to, Jax thanked Mike last meeting, and I want to thank Mike personally for building and donating our cabinets to display the veterans' pill bottles for Operation Trapped. Thank you so much, Mike. They were beautiful. We displayed them at the Capitol. Literally thousands of people saw those pill bottles. Many hundreds of people stopped and talked to our volunteers who are working at the Capitol about those pill bottles. So thank you so much, Mike, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, here in just a little while, we are going to be blessed by the Mau Mau chaplains who will take our spirits all the way up to heaven. But before that, is Mikey Swenson here? Mikey Swenson and Austin's funniest comedians are going to